spawn to that, Roddy, is your feud with Mr. T, and I always wondered, watching that feud, especially WrestleMania 2 and the build-up, I mean, legit, you guys didn't like each other, did you?
No, still to this day. Because the very first time I met him was like, we were in doing the first press conference in Rockefeller Center, and it's at the top, and of course I'm late, and the door's closed, and I open the door, and all these cameras go off, and on my right-hand side was Mr. T, then there was Hogan, then there was McMahon in a podium, and then there was Orndorff rather, and a chair with my name on it. And when I came in, Mr. T flexed his muscle. He said, "Feel this." I'd never talked to the guy before. So I squeezed his head, and I said, "It's pretty soft." And I didn't know you weren't supposed to touch Mr. T. So what do you mean I'm not supposed to touch the guy? Then the arrogant attitude of, well, you know, I'm Mr. T. I'm the world's toughest bouncer. I know for a fact that the world's toughest bouncer competition he was in, they had to bust through a door and ring a bell at the end of it. Well, it's not called balsa wood. It's a different kind of wood, but it's a real flimsy wood that door's made out of. Anybody could bust through it. So you might be a great bouncer, the world's toughest bouncer, but you're in the league, and at that time, cream of the crop from professional wrestling.
I think this is fake.
You can't say that. I can say that.
Wrestling's not fake!
It's still real to me, damn it!
The unscripted, uncensored, loose cannon of commentary. This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
You're listening to Marks on Commentary.
You're listening to Marks on Commentary. I'm Eddie Brophy.
I'm Jason Smith.
And we tend to talk about wrestling before actually recording the damn show, which kind of defeats the purpose. We should probably just, the second I call him on Skype, we should probably just start rolling then. But we were kind of, not really like an itinerary, but trying to kind of brainstorm what we're going to talk about this week, because it wasn't necessarily a lull, but there wasn't really much to, commentate. There wasn't really much to talk about this week.
Exactly. We're in the middle point before WrestleMania happens. You know what I mean? You get extra weeks of Raw and stuff like that kind of burn you out. Like, all right, WrestleMania, hurry the fuck up and get here.
Now, how many, we got, 2 weeks now? 2.5
It's like 2 weeks. 3 weeks.
Well, the thing we were discussing, Jason brought up, was he sent me the link to Undertaker's appearance on Main Event. Mm-hmm. And you were saying he looked, and I agree, he did look scary. I was going to point out, and it's stupid, but it's amazing what a little facial hair can do to a person.
Little hair dye.
Well, I mean, like, just the look he has now. Like, he doesn't, I don't know how to explain it, but for the past, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years, he's looked his age. Mm-hmm. Like, he hasn't looked young at all. And I think, sans the longer hair, he looks about as, he looks like Ministry Taker, one of my favorite versions of that character, but he doesn't look as burnt out as he has.
Yeah.
And I mean, that this is a man who is physically, I want to say probably the past 5 or 6 Mania matches, has just looked burnt out. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but...
I don't know about burnt out, but, he's definitely showing his age, but...
I was kind of thinking about this, too. I've kind of hated, like, the Gothic Samurai thing unlocking.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm kind of hoping this year maybe he'll introduce something a little different. Like, I just feel like the thing about Taker is he like, the character progresses every Mania, and it just kind of bums me out that there hasn't really been much of a character progression. It's just kind of like, oh, we're just going to get our one Taker match a year, and he's going to look like he did last year, and he's going to win the match. Like, just to get something different out of that character.
No, I'm with you. I agree. That this version's kind of been done, and he is kind of slowly evolving, and when it's time, they usually recognize it, so... But I don't know. I never know what they can do with the guy, but they always seem to bring something different to the table, so...
I mean, are his promos with both Brock and Paul Heyman kind of indicative of... Because he seems more aggressive than he ever has.
Yeah, especially like his voice. His voice has a different pitch to it now, where he's like I said, he's just fucking scary.
And I like that because in past years he hasn't seemed as aggressive. Like I'm waiting for him to redeem himself because again, of course, Taker had shaved his head, and the way they tried to write that into the Mania match with Triple H was, he wore a wig when he came back,
Mhm.
and then he cut his hair for every day he waited for Triple H to agree to the match. I think by far out of all of the programs he's been in leading into that Mania match, that had to have been one of the worst. I mean, do you have a personal favorite in terms of Taker, whether it's returning for a Mania match or like a big lead up to that Mania match? Do you have any like a favorite?
I mean, I think the one I'll go to, and I think you'll probably go to, is like the WrestleMania 14 one, because that was like a slow burn just to get to that point.
It was definitely up there. I don't know. I will go same opponent, but I will say WrestleMania 20.
Yeah,
I think that was cool just because for so long he had been Big Evil, he had been the American Baddest. I can't tell you how, and those were in those years where like Monday night, like there wasn't really anything else on. And again, unlike you, like there had been a point where I stopped watching wrestling completely,
hmm
and I'd only really picked it up, or probably around the time when I was kind of in and out during the Invasion storyline, but I picked it up mainly when Mick Foley came back and he was like the general manager.
hmm
And then, of course, when Austin came back, and then he and Eric Bischoff became co-general managers. But it was namely around WrestleMania 20 when Undertaker had that match with Vince, and he was buried alive by Kane.
hmm
And they started doing all those really eerie promo videos leading up to, and like, when Kane came out and the urn was out there and the casket was out there. And I thought it was cool because Taker wasn't in a single one of those promos, and it was still as effective, if not more, than any promo where he was directly involved.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's up there on me, up there for me. And wow, that's like 10 years ago. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I remember when you showed me that. So WWE made this package. Obviously, it was a commercial for
Yeah,
WrestleMania 30. That was really well done. That was probably one of the better ads I've seen for a pay-per-view in recent
yeah.
years.
Where it's transitioning from year to year. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like when they do something like that and they make you go like, hey, we know you're all fans. Like you can appreciate this, and like we appreciate you. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a cool nod when you see that kind of shit.
I think it made Jason a little nostalgic.
Yeah.
It was a little poignant because it showed the fact that like obviously the character in the video starts off seeing what was it WrestleMania 3,
Yeah, I think it was
and then
three.
it just kind of transitions into him growing up watching wrestling. I
He's
mean,
wearing the DX shirt, and then then he's got the CM Punk shirt on, which I'm sure they hate now, but
oh, I got to imagine now. I mean, because I was reading that the Slam City cartoon or whatever they're doing, the claymation show.
yeah.
I remember seeing the ad for that and being like, "Why is CM Punk in there?" And realizing, like, "Oh God, these are all projects prior to the announcement and the launch of WWE Network that they were probably trying to get off the ground while he was still an
hmm
active talent and on the active roster. And now it's like they have to go back and like all like the stupid little ventures they have with like the Flintstones movie and crap like that, having to
Yeah,
come
I mean,
back.
even if you watch shit on the network, they have episodes banked of like, what is it, Countdown and WrestleMania Rewind, and he's all over those things. So, and those have just been banked, and they haven't had the time to go back and edit. I don't think it was just feasible for them to do.
Well, probably not now because I mean, I don't know. What do you think bugs them more? The fact that it would cost them money to take him out of it, or the fact that they're still paying him for the fact? I mean, he's still under contract.
I think he's under contract, but I don't think he earns anything. I think he only earns if he's there. It might be a funny thing. Like, if you're hurt, it might be one thing. If you're elect to go home, I don't know. I'm sure there's legal mumbo jumbo in there that he's not getting money right now.
I was gonna say because I was curious how that works with the superstar. And again, and this is not so much a CM Punk centric show. We are getting over it slowly but surely. I like any bad breakup. I will say there is that 6 month period where it takes you a while to the grief, the feeling bereft, and then eventually acceptance. But more so, I'm more fascinated by the legal end of everything that's going on.
hmm Especially like because he's now appearing as Phil Brooks. I don't know if you caught any of the Talking Dead thing.
I didn't get you, but I did see the screenshots where
Mm.
and a lot of his friends, like Cole Cabana, recently did an interview, and when asked about CM Punk, he just stayed silent through the whole thing.
Hmm.
Like he wouldn't answer any questions. And I'm just curious how that works in terms of if you're under contract, you have to, I mean, like any recording artist or, actors, whatever. The fact that, I mean, maybe they are, I don't know, but can they take legal action for the fact that, I mean, it's a breach of contract, I would think.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just retains to athletic things or just wrestling things in general. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like another circumstance where somebody did something outside that didn't get, necessarily clearance. And
Now, I don't know, obviously, if we're going to get anyone who, I mean, we've talked to someone on Twitter who was a lawyer. I mean, I don't know, how, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't know how that works in terms of different professions, but now I'm more curious on the legal side of it is, he's got this contract up till July. And clearly, I mean, he breached his contract, but they're still honoring his contract. How does any of that work? And of course, you're going to get probably the smart ass thing because he's still with the company. It's a work. I mean, if it is fantastic, that'll be one of the bigger surprises, other than one we'll mention in a few minutes at WrestleMania. But I'm still just on the legal side of things. Like, how is this affecting them financially? How is this affecting him? Like, could this lead to obviously a lawsuit? I mean, I don't know, because again, with Warrior in '96, where he was, bailing on house shows and stuff like that. Did they ever take legal action for that, or is it did they just stop paying him? Or
Warrior?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think.
that was how they worked in that whole thing with Gorilla Monsoon suspending him because he wasn't honoring his agreement, and he was billed to be at these house shows, and of course, anyone who buys a ticket to a WWE show, I mean, obviously, the fine print card is subject to change, and obviously that's to cover their own asses legally. But
I don't know, because I'm wondering if it was just a case of like, okay, you don't have to be here, but you going home, but you can't go anywhere else. You know what I mean? Because there was a gap in time. So what was it, '96, and then it wasn't until like October '98 that he popped up on Nitro.
I don't know. Is that a different story though? Because that was their competitor. I mean, with Punk, do they worry about him? I mean, I think he's got far too much respect for himself. And when he says I'm leaving professional wrestling, I don't think he's necessarily saying I'm leaving, WWE specifically. I'm leaving professional wrestling. So, I mean, do they worry that like, oh, Phil Brooks is going to pop up on TNA somewhere or Ring of Honor or something like that?
I don't know. I don't think they do.
Well,
I think they know if he's going to be anywhere, he's going to be there.
Yeah.
Because if you've heard him in past interviews, he talks down to stuff like TNA and stuff. So I don't see him popping up in any other company. But it's wrestling; you never know.
Well, I mean, business-wise, I mean, just from a business point of view, I don't think it's one of the smarter strategies financially for him to have pulled what he did. But again, I mean, people get burnt out. It's a job like any other. I mean, Nina and I just had this conversation the other night because I don't know what even brought it up, but the whole concept of like your job night after night is to walk through a curtain, hear your theme song, get a reaction out of thousands of people. And of course, I don't do this for a living, so I don't necessarily know if it gets stale after a while, like if you just get bored doing it.
I'm sure he does. I mean, he always talks about having that goal, and if he doesn't have that goal that he can achieve, then yeah, I'm sure he is burnt out and jaded by it all.
I mean, because I can't sit here and say it never happens, because I mean, unless you do it, like I worked in radio, and I can tell you, I was going on 4 years in radio, I was just kind of bored with it. I was just kind of, the same routine over and over and over with none of the benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I can respect his integrity that you're not doing it for the money. Obviously, you're doing it for the passion. But I just, the curiosity of where does this position him legally or financially? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if we do have any lawyers that are listening that might have some insight on that, 978-276-9418 at MO Commentary. I'm just curious about it because I'm just curious if WWE, if they had the opportunity to kind of be like, all right, well, this guy totally just stiffed us and he's under contract and he breached it. Why haven't they taken legal action? That is to say, if they could. So I don't know. I don't know if that one ever crossed your mind or not.
No, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure they just want to keep everything Because I'm sure that they think that they maybe can get Punk back after he's rested. So,
Well, there were comments, I guess, and I'd read that there was some backstage banter over the fact that he looked much younger, like he looked rested when he did the Talking Dead segment.
I'm sure he probably spent 3 weeks in bed just relaxing.
Well, that's the thing too. Is I looked at the screen time and just felt like he looked so awkward because you stripped him of his identity. I mean, in real life, yes, this is Phil Brooks, the human being, but when you're doing media like that and you're Phil Brooks, like you're not, because that's a show that the whole idea of the show is to take celebrities that all love this show and it's a shared interest and they talk about it. So you have, the actors from Community on there, you have Chris Hardwick, and then you have Phil Brooks. It just seems a little awkward, is all. The fact that, you know what I mean? Like, and Chris Hardwick did refer to him as the wrestler formerly known as CM Punk, but just the name, Phil Brooks, just kind of seemed awkward to me. Like,
True, but I wonder if it's an elected thing to do that because I think if you establish the name outside of WWE and you get to keep it on screen, it's yours to keep going forward. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm trying to think of like another occasion where it's been used, but
I mean, unless you take the Ultimate Warrior approach and you legally change your name to Warrior.
which I don't even know how that works because I heard people mock that and that's not true, but he's been going around saying he's Warrior or he's just Warrior.
I believe, didn't China do the same thing though? Because I remember there was a thing on TMZ.
That's right.
Where
China doll or whatever.
Yeah, where she had basically, invited their cameras in her face, and she went off about how she was no longer a slave to Vince McMahon, and it was legally her name, and it wasn't something he owned anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
but I also wonder though maybe it's him going, that's kind of behind me, and I want to do other stuff. I want to, maybe he wants to act, maybe he wants to, I don't know, do music, whatever, comedy, maybe, and he's just like, I can't, be serious about what I'm doing if I go out there and it's like, tonight on stage, it's CM Punk.
well, I mean, that's the thing too, because obviously when The Rock, and there is something I do want to address because obviously I have too much time on my hands, and I was reading the message boards on WrestleZone for a CM Punk article, and someone had pointed out, CM Punk fans are such hypocrites. When Rock leaves and he's burnt out, and he gets like a lighter schedule, you all call him a sellout, whereas CM Punk essentially just walked down the company, and he's kind of doing the same thing. As a CM Punk fan, I never thought of Rock as being a sellout. I kind of assumed that he found a tremendous opportunity. Believe it or not, wrestlers get paid very well. I mean, better than I get paid, but I mean, look at the figures The Rock's or Dwayne Johnson gets now doing motion pictures, especially the fact that he's done so many. I mean, to be honest with you, when he cameoed, and I think it was the second Mummy movie right before The Scorpion King, I wasn't sitting there and thinking like, wow, he has such a promising career as a thespian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fact that he found a niche, so to speak, and he was able to do it so well and get into, and not to mention, Rock has been in a lot of franchise films too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, he did one blockbuster. Like, no, he managed to get into I still don't know how it happened, but like the Fast and Furious franchise. The fact that that's even relevant, was relevant when Paul Walker was still alive, still like blows my mind. But I mean, I thought that was an interesting conversation because it did make me wonder, like, well, yeah, I mean, and Dwayne Johnson did the same thing. He was The Rock for, I think, his first 3 or 4 films, and then he said, no, I want to be Dwayne Johnson. I don't want to be The Rock forever. I mean, does that come across, though? I mean, if you're a fan, I mean, are people justified in their opinion that, like, wow, what a sellout, he doesn't want to be associated with what originally made him famous? Or do you see that as kind of like a no, like, they're entitled to that? They worked X amount of years as a professional wrestler, and it was the catalyst for other great opportunities. Shouldn't they be, allowed to do them under their given name?
Yeah, I think you should be allowed to go out on your given name. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like you were a character in this movie, but you don't, Michael J. Fox isn't being like, well, I'm showing up as Marty McFly on the next movie.
Yeah.
So it's you portraying one character and going to the next,
I do find it funny, though, that Steve Austin's retired, and yet when Steve Austin does a movie, he's not Steve Williams. He's still Steve Austin or Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah. And same with like Hulk Hogan. He's Hulk Hogan, but is really Terry Bollea.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I just think it's funny because I feel like it shows, it exudes confidence on behalf of, like, for example, Dwayne Johnson doesn't feel like he needs a marquee or a film poster to read The Rock. Like, he can just be Dwayne Johnson and still sell tickets. Whereas someone like Stone Cold Steve Austin might do an action movie and think, well, who the hell's going to know who Steve Williams is?
But it may be at the same point, Punk, he's his own man and just like, hey, if I'm going to make it and being an actor or something else, I'm going to do it, by my given name. And, I'm not going to use what I've done in the past to try and elevate me anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, well, again, we had mentioned, or I had mentioned that, that could be the big WrestleMania surprise. As of right now, and it could be a rumor, it could be, you take the dirt sheets with a grain of salt by now. And for the most part, they're pretty accurate, but the rumor is that Sting not only has signed with WWE, and he did so like a week ago, but he's supposed to show up at WrestleMania.
I'm not sure if that'll happen or not.
Well, let's say, just hypothetically, Sting does show up at WrestleMania 30. And you're booking WrestleMania. You're creative, or you're booking, or you're Vince McMahon. Where do you put a name like Sting?
Maybe he comes to the aid of Taker at the end of the Brock match somehow. Taker barely squeaks by, but I don't know. Sting comes to his aid or something like that.
I mean, that was my initial thought. My initial thought wasn't so much that he comes to his aid, or he comes to his aid inadvertently. Like, he comes in, he helps Taker win the match, and then he pulls this whole promo about, he only did it because he wants to be the one to end the streak, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would probably be the most feasible, the most viable option WWE has. I mean, if you're going to sign a guy like Sting, 10-1 says he's going to be a very, very part-time talent.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he only wants to work Taker, but I think you need to build him up first. And there's some pieces on the board that you can do it with and do it effectively.
That would be my next question then. Sting signs with WWE, and he's in, and he's going to be unveiled at WrestleMania as a, active talent on the roster. If Sting's whole initiative for signing with WWE finally, after all these years, is he wants his last match to be with Taker, who do you put him in with to get him to get to Undertaker?
I mean, if you're looking to go young, I think you go Bray Wyatt. Just because you can play up the whole aura, eerie feeling kind of thing, and you don't have to veer away from what he does best.
Now, does that work? And I don't mean to interrupt, but does that work? Like, for you, during the Mankind Undertaker programs, did it work for you that you had two eerie characters, or even Undertaker Kane? Did it ever work for you to have two eerie characters against one another?
Yeah, I've never had a problem with that. When it's done right. I mean, you can't take like a shitty character and put him up against the Undertaker and expect it to work. But
like, I think for years the dream match was Boogeyman against Undertaker, and I always thought that would, like, you can't just say, oh, this guy's evil, so he's a perfect match for Undertaker.
Yeah,
like, the character has to play off Undertaker's character and has to complement the character. Like, the characters have to complement one another in order for that to work. I mean, I don't know. I think at this point, Bray Wyatt is just, he's so over with the crowd that you could be just about anybody. And he seems like he's a good enough worker that, I mean, even his promo with Cena on Raw, I actually thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm getting excited about that match now. Before I was just like, it's a throwaway. But I'm like, you know what? I think they're going to bring it, like, in that match.
Well, I think it's funny, though, because Cena's been with the company for so many years, and he's wrestled X amount of superstars, and this is the first time they've ever had Cena come out and say he was afraid of a superstar. I thought was a big, big move on WWE's part in building the Wyatt character.
Yeah.
I mean, that's no different than Cena letting Bryan get over him clean. Having Cena, the Boy Scout, the Superman, Super Cena, say he's actually afraid of something, and it's this character that, as I said, he's over, but I mean, he's still relatively new. I mean, what was it? Last summer was when he debuted.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's pretty remarkable that the company or Cena must believe enough in that character or in that talent to say, no, like, I want this to be the guy that could be a credible threat to my character. It would be no different than, if Bret Hart didn't have a problem putting over Shawn Michaels at the Montreal match. But as you know, we've discussed, and we may do this as a future thing where we commentate on wrestling movies. I mean, that quote was for him to do that would be like asking him to blow his brains out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's the funny thing about wrestling is, the casual fan will watch that and kind of laugh, and it's so tongue in cheek. But if you're a fan, you know that certain programs, however they play out, it ultimately is a sign of respect for one athlete over another.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the promo was executed beautifully, and I did think it was funny that Wyatt made a remark about Cena's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. They're going very real for this angle, in a weird way. I don't know if you've caught the WWE.com like interview with Cole and Cena. It's pretty cool because like the line that I like gravitated towards was Cena's like, I always get people coming up to me saying, I hate your character, but I respect you. And I was like, all right, that kind of fits me.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like they're hitting all the right chords on this angle for me.
Well, I mean, it's almost reminiscent of the Punk Jericho program when he came back with those promos, which, I mean, at one point you and I were sitting on Monday night, I'd be at the studio and you'd be at your job. And we're both like, all right, seriously, like I want to say it's Jericho, but I don't even really know anymore. And I thought that was a beautifully worked promo where Jericho and CM Punk, there was a great deal of realism in it. In terms of him playing off certain facets of Punk's life that were actually true regarding his father and his sister. And people say, is that crossing a line? This is supposed to be escapism. Do you cross the line when you bring that in? I mean, I don't think they've made it as controversial as the Punk Jericho one was. But I did like the fact that they do acknowledge the fact that, Brian is engaged and going to marry one of the Bella twins and that Cena's dating one. And I always find it funny when they do acknowledge, like they did with the Matt Hardy and Edge program back at SummerSlam, when he did the Matt Hardy show and Vince brought him in and his whole reason was because, when he sees fires lit, he just wants to throw gasoline on. I thought it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, but I did love the fact that they did incorporate so much of the backstage stuff into that.
Yeah.
Which felt like I felt cheated when the match ended in no contest between them.
Yeah, I was so pissed because I'm like, oh, he's going to fucking kick his ass and going to be an awesome blood fest. And it didn't even get going.
Well, there was blood, but, and a part of me has to wonder too, like, was that more of Edge's influence? Because at that point, he was a main event guy.
Yeah.
Or he was well on his way to that. And was that him saying, I'm not putting Matt Hardy over me, considering, all the stuff that was really going on?
I don't know. We'll never know. I don't think anybody will ever speak.
Unless, of course, we get Matt Hardy before we get Gangrel on the show.
I don't know. I used to be a big Matt Hardy fan. I kind of think he's gone off the wagon a little mentally.
Well, he was posting those videos on YouTube. I'd say that, yeah, that ship had sailed.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, my next question, though, is regarding interviews we've done in the past. Obviously, we did that interview with Andy's Army, Bob, about Andy getting in the Hall of Fame. And then Mr. T, literally, like a few days later, it's Mr. T's going in.
Yeah. The rumors were that this year, unfortunately, but I get it. I don't know if I love it. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you ever listen to like the Roddy Piper stuff. He talks about like the lack of respect that T had for the wrestling industry.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I always feel like they miss their mark with the celebrity wing, and I mean, there are obviously fans out there that hate that the WWE Hall of Fame takes up a spot by not addressing or honoring an actual wrestler, and they do it for a celebrity. And again, Bob mentioned himself, Drew Carey, and Pete Rose, like who. Yeah, they were part of a pay-per-view or whatever, or part of a storyline. But why would you induct them and overlook guys like Kaufman or, I mean, even Mr. T? Mr. T had more of a presence in WWF or WWE than Pete Rose or Drew Carey did. I feel like this is one of those things that like it should have happened years ago. I mean, you have so much talent in that Hall of Fame this year that I'm not let down. I'm not upset, but it definitely, like, if you had added like Kaufman or Cyndi Lauper or something, it definitely would have made it like a 4-star Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know. I get that having him on there makes it a special thing because he was a part of the first WrestleMania, but I think yeah, I'm with you that there are better names that you could have picked ultimately to make it. I don't know.
Now, does that leave us with one spot open, or did we fill all 7 slots?
I imagine they're going to throw somebody else in there because they also added Carlito's father. I don't know if you heard that one as well.
Yeah, got that one. And it kind of sucks because when they announce someone, via the web, like the Mr. T thing, I feel like only came out because TMZ got to it first.
Mm-hmm.
And God, that should be one of the WrestleMania grudge matches this year, WWE versus TMZ. Because I feel like and it's funny because it seems so silly because we talked about before the stigma of being a wrestling fan and following a product like wrestling that's, so kind of, people find out you're a wrestling fan in your 20s or your 30s and they kind of roll their eyes and like scoff at you. And yet TMZ was all over the CM Punk walking out thing.
Yep.
They've been all over Hogan returning. And of course now, like they were the first ones to announce, oh, Mr. T's going in the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now that makes my next question. Who should WWE fear more? Reddit, dirt sheets, or TMZ?
That's a good one. I don't know. The new like hot thing seems to be Reddit, so I'd probably say Reddit because they still haven't caught that other guy.
And if like a few years from now we find out that it was an actual wrestler on the roster, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even come close. If it was Zeb Coulter, it wouldn't surprise me.
Speaking of funny things that were revealed this week, I don't know if you caught. Are you familiar with Cranky Vince on Twitter?
Yeah.
Did you see the article of who might have fucked up?
No.
Apparently, Cranky Vince tweeted one thing like, wow, what a great way to start Raw. Then the message was deleted, and JBL then posted the exact same message on his thing.
Oh, I did. I saw something that was out. I didn't put one and one together because I didn't read the article. So, is it implied that JBL's been Cranky Vince the whole time?
Uh-huh. And I've heard the finger been pointed at him before, too.
Now, does that jeopardize his job as a commentator, do you think? Or
I don't think so, but he could, I don't know. He may get a fine, maybe. He may, but they have to prove it. And I don't know how you prove it.
I don't know. That's a good. Well, that's another thing too. If you have, I mean, obviously the first instinct is they get terminated. I mean, they get future endeavored, what have you. If you find out that someone who is currently under contract to your company is kind of mocking your company while collecting a paycheck.
But I guess at one point too, he was also, I don't know. I don't want to say like leaking information, but leaking, I don't know, knowledge that wasn't really known among the internet wrestling community. So,
do you have any solid examples of that? Or?
I wish I did at the moment, but
I mean, again, it would not surprise me. I mean, because it does make you wonder, though, if JBL was in fact Cranky Vince on Twitter, what's stopping him from being the Nostradamus of WWE on Reddit?
Yeah, what's his name? Fucking Dolphin 1986 or something like that.
Something like that. I honestly, I don't really pay my. I used to be on Reddit almost as much as the dirt sheet websites, but
yeah. I don't know, like the fact that he is so correct about his predictions almost drives me away from seeking it out.
Well, that's the thing too, is when and originally I didn't discover WrestleZone or dirt sheets until about 7th grade.
Yeah.
And really the only reason why I was so drawn to dirt sheets was because, and of course we'll continue Marks on Mania and I'll elaborate on this during the WrestleMania 2000 segment, was that I didn't understand Taker's departure from the company at the time. Like, he left in character, but I was reading things and hearing things from my neighbor who was a professional wrestler that no, like it was a legitimate vendetta that him and Vince, or a legitimate like sort of beef that they had between each other. Mm-hmm. And then I was, hearing people telling me that like they would air specials on like night show, like I don't know, like Dateline or whatever, and following injured wrestlers around, and they showed footage of Taker all bandaged up or whatever, leaving a doctor's appointment, and thinking like, okay, so what the hell's really going on with Mark Calloway, the Undertaker? And that was essentially what, you start reading dirt sheets, And I knew that for the most part, they were pretty accurate in terms of predicting pay-per-views and the conclusions of Raws or SmackDowns. Obviously, SmackDown was taped, but even then, like, it was still speculation to me. Like, when something was solid proof, when someone's like, no, I have the proof, this is exactly how the show's going down, you don't really want to read it because you still love that element of surprise. I mean, while I was reading that, oh yeah, CM Punk's in Chicago, like, I never really believed it, but I definitely wanted to. So I knew when that Raw ended, it was going to end without CM Punk, but you still had that speculation in your mind, like, but he could show up. That's the aspect of professional wrestling. And I tell people all the time, I don't really watch television. And it's not like a snobby thing, like I'm above it. It's just, I don't get as hooked to television shows as I do, say, movies. Raw is still, because it's live, it's 3 hours of live programming, that it still has the element of surprise going for it. And I think that's definitely something that a lot of, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's definitely something I would love to ask wrestling fans about. 978-276-9418 at MO Commentary. I mean, how many of you read the dirt sheets? And if you do, I mean, do you kind of do it almost carefully? Because, again, I feel like that's the only reason any of us are still fans, is because there is that element of surprise that still exists in professional wrestling.
Yeah. I think that's a big reason, like, why people don't watch SmackDown but only watch Raw.
I've said it myself. The main reason why I don't really watch Friday Night SmackDown, well, first of all, because it's on Friday night. I mean, to me, that's always been, and it's known in the industry as being like a graveyard for television.
Yeah.
Because that's why you have Saturday Night Live, and that's why, making an Andy Kaufman reference, that's why that show Fridays never worked. Because, Saturday night at, 11:30 midnight, people are going home, they're hungover, they're whatever, they'll fall asleep or crash or black out, and what's on Saturday Night Live? And there's more incentive to watch Saturday Night Live, because if you're a music fan, watching, insert performer group name here performing is still kind of a big deal to people. Not probably as much as it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but still. But I've always kind of felt like it's predetermined, like it's already been taped on a Tuesday night. You're getting all the results by Wednesday, whether you want to, read it or not.
Yeah.
But again, it's taped, so you know that nothing's really going to surprise you.
Especially, they don't make things happen on a SmackDown anymore.
Well, no, I mean, that's why I think it's such a useless show, at least now. Because when it first premiered, like, it was a big deal. Any more wrestling that you could get was perfect, because Sunday or Monday night was not enough. And by the time SmackDown aired, Sunday Night Heat they were kind of phasing it. They were in the process of phasing it out. I remember how monumental it was when they first aired SmackDown, when they did the pilot episode, if you will.
Yep.
During the peak of and it was the introduction of the corporate ministry, like right before Over the Edge. I couldn't tell you how amazing for some. And was that live or was that taped? I don't remember that now.
I want to say it was live, but
That's the thing with SmackDown, when they do like I remember during the Super, what was it, the Super Raw, or what were they calling it?
Super shows or whatever.
Yeah, the Raw Super Show. It was different when they did the live SmackDowns, because I don't know, don't air it live on a Tuesday, like actually do it live on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, you need a little breathing room in between shows, I think.
Especially if a pay-per-view Sunday, Raw Monday, Tuesday, SmackDown, I don't know, that'd wear me out. That's my biggest concern, and like, especially like going back to like WrestleMania last year, where it's like, hey, we're gonna go to Access, then we're gonna go to Hall of Fame, and then we're gonna go to WrestleCon, and then we're gonna go to this independent show. I was just like, I love wrestling, but I don't want to get wrestled out. You know what I mean? If I'm shelling out money to go to WrestleMania, I want some breathing room. And me and Hillary, we took the trip to New York and stuff like that. So,
well, that's the other thing too. Is, I mean, obviously Catherine was one of them. Like, that girl lives, breathes, sleeps wrestling. And I'm not that kind of person. Like, my Sunday Monday nights are my one Sunday a month, and then my every Monday night, those are wrestling nights. But the rest of the week, I'll kind of dick around on WrestleZone or Wrestling Inc. or No DQ or any of those sites. And I'll go on WWE.com and see if, any content's got. I think that was my initial apprehension to the WWE Network, wasn't so much that it wasn't a phenomenon. By the way, I believe the free trial ends tomorrow, doesn't it?
I don't know. I'm locked into my
Yeah,
my
I
6 month.
believe as of the broadcast of Raw, they were saying that as of Friday, like if you're gonna go for the free trial, that's it. So if any of you are still interested in the WWE Network, I would suggest. I thought about it, but that's my main concern with it. Is it's no different than, and I've probably said this in shows previous. It's like torrenting. When torrenting was a thing, and I had a friend introduce me to it, and it was like, oh, like whatever I can think of. I have entire discographies in the library. It sucked because it was like you didn't have to work for it. It was just kind of there.
Yeah.
And then you just found yourself like just kind of burnt out on, you know, I don't know, like that's just, I guess that's a fundamental thing in my mind is like, I like the fact that I don't have access to entire libraries. Like at the time, it seems amazing, you know?
Mhm.
And that's kind of like, you know, the people our age that are like, oh, it'd be so great if they brought back the old Nickelodeon shows. And they did. And it was like a really awesome thing for about a month. Does anyone watch the 90s or all that anymore?
Is that still happening?
Yeah. Does anyone watch it? I don't think so. I mean, obviously, on their end, they kind of dropped the ball because they put all the emphasis on like 2 or 3 specific shows.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it too was that certain things don't age very well in your mind. And that was like the constant back and forth I used to have with this friend of mine named Mac. And before this was long before this even happened, we would talk about salute your shorts and stuff. And his whole thing was he's like, I can never, and he was the type of guy, like he didn't buy DVDs because he's like, I see a movie once and I'm set. Like, how do you do that? Like I still watch the same movies like 9 million times. He was like, what happens if you find a movie you like and then like, you know, you wait the 6 or 7 months for it to come out on DVD and you watch it again, you're like, wow, this movie actually sucked. And that I kind of feel like that's how I feel about wrestling. Like I don't like consuming wrestling on a daily basis because, you know, it's more exciting the first time it happens. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I love wrestling. I love going back and watching matches, but unlike Jason, because I wasn't like a hardcore wrestling fan, to see matches for the first time that happened like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago is still exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that feeling. And I think that was my initial, aside from getting locked in like Jason did, like, ah, crap. Like, I won't even pay, you know, $10 a month for a podcast. So you fuckers don't hear that I'm not. They've exceeded their bandwidth. But like, that was another initial reason was going back and going through the library and just getting really burnt out because it's like, oh my God, I have access to literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that being said, you had sent me a thing that they are working on.
Oh yeah.
Pitching new reality shows. So I do kind of want to go through the list here.
Some of them are fucking hysterical.
Well, it's hysterical because it's an actual like this. You're at Titan Towers. You're in the boardroom, and these are the ideas that are actually being proposed.
Like these are the ones that made it too.
So I'll read some of these, and bear in mind that I work in a thrift store. Jason works in public access. Jason probably makes way more than I do, but I'm sitting there thinking these people make way more than Jason and I combined. And this is what their brilliant minds are coming up with. So I'll go through this list here. Jason, Blackman's Bounty. Former WWE superstar and legit badass Steve Blackman reality series following his bounty hunting team based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Think Dog the Bounty Hunter. Don't hate the idea, but I think it'll be as successful as the Steven Seagal version of this.
Yeah, it just sounds like a funny joke. Like, hey, what are wrestlers doing after they don't work in the ring anymore? Oh, Steve...
This would be no different than them when Luna was still alive. They followed her around in her tow truck. Or if they go to like an insurance company, the insurance company that Spike Dudley works at. All right, NXT behind the scenes. I kind of feel like this is stupid. A reality series following the talents trying to make it out of the performance center into the main roster. Looking at their work, their personal lives, and the fraternity of the NXT brand, including the heartbreak of being cut. So it's basically, and it says in this article, so it's essentially Tough Enough. Pros versus Joes, and I think if anyone can remember this, and I think only really wrestling fans can, because WWE obviously was on Spike TV, and I do remember the Joe Schmo show. Pretty much the same as the old Spike TV series, putting WWE talents against an average person in physical and non-physical challenges. The non-physical challenges listed include an air guitar competition. The physical challenge was described as similar to American Gladiators. Funny enough that Hulk Hogan co-hosted the American Gladiators revamp, which, as you can imagine, Jason kind of sounded like he didn't even know that it happened, although I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of you think they brought back American Gladiators. When exactly?
I knew that was during the writer's strike.
WWE around the world, following WWE talents taking part in some of the scariest stunts and attractions of the world, such as shark diving and eating strange foods. It read as if it was modeled after some of the Travel Channel's extreme specials with a dash of Andy Bourdain's No Reservations. Again, what's the point of releasing like superstar centric DVDs if essentially you're just turning them all into WWE network programs?
True.
Like no, like this is my legitimate thing here. If talents are concerned about their paychecks concerning, pay-per-view paychecks or whatever, this is the one I'd be most concerned about is while they're trying to come up with ideas to sustain a network, all the stuff that typically go into wrestling DVDs, and to me, those are the most fun ones to get are the specific wrestler ones because you get a look into an individual, and I feel like you're spreading yourself thin by doing stuff like this. But I'll keep going. This one's stupid. WWE Dirty Jobs, just like the Discovery Channel reality series of the same name. WWE talents have to perform unpleasant jobs, including going into Chicago sewers and picking up garbage in NYC.
Fucking stupid.
I mean, didn't they just create that show? Literally, the Claymation show. That's what it is. It's if every talent on the WWE roster was future endeavored. What would I mean? Obviously, it's stupid. It's supposed to be meant for kids, but I did think about that. Like, they should just make a show called Future Endeavored. Like, screw the Steve Blackman thing. No, I'm pitching it right now, WWE. If anyone in WWE listens, future t-shirt, prowrestlingtees.com/Mark's Commentary. We're still trying to sell those fuckers. Future Endeavor. This would be my reality series. Follow around the jaded, miserable would-be wrestlers who John Laurinaitis or whoever's in charge of that job. Let's go. Let's like start from day one when they get the pink slip. Where does their life begin? WWE Future Endeavor. That's my pitch. Jason's laughing because he thinks it's hysterical because think about it. Well, they do the "Where Are They Now" thing. Like they always focus on like, well, they bounced back. No, like I want behind the music meets like the
wrestler.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. Yeah, I said Luna in the tow truck. Did you follow Luna to the overdose? Like, you know what I mean? I think no, that's another one. WWE behind the wrestling. Get the guy that does the voiceover because I want to have like the really dramatic music and it sounds so morbid, but the lead up to it. Your first episode will be about Chris Benoit. Too soon. It actually will be about Andrew Tess Martin. Ooh. Yeah, I'm being a dick. WWE Prank Down. A prank down. Really? I want to meet the person that came up with that. I was like a punch them in the face. Practical joke show that features WWE talents pulling tricks on unsuspecting superfans. The example giving was John Cena and Randy Orton both wanting to buy an expensive car and getting into a fight at the dealership, only to show the damage they caused was part of the show to trick the fan.
Like the thing is, like looking at the list, like you read the title and it's like my mind goes to, well, why don't you have like old wrestlers sit down and tell the story, the old fun stories of how they used to prank each other, and then reenact it or you know what I mean?
Oh no, I have two proposals for this. I have two show proposals. Owen Hart. That's my proposal. Owen Hart. Just do an entire show based on his ribs. Because X-Pac even said he could write a whole book on them. Like, why not do reenactments? Like, just seriously, like, have a superstar, a veteran, tell these stories about Owen Hart's pranks. And that's the thing. You can get around the whole WWE not being able to induct him in the Hall of Fame. If you're like, screw it, we'll talk about his pranks. Because there are so many superstars that aren't affiliated with the company or still in the company, but in like the booking or whatever sense. And you could do a whole show about that. The other one is MOC Prank Down, where we get a former pro wrestler to agree to do our show without actually doing our show. WWE Rescue, a reality show where WWE talents come to the homes of superfans, help them with their personal and business problems. Think Restaurant Impossible meets Nanny 911.
I don't get it.
That one's kind of depressing because I could already come up with an episode featuring a Mark, but I won't. WWE Ultimate Challenge, WWE's version of CBS's Amazing Race with a 12-hour extreme scavenger hunt in different cities.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it if it ends up with like Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler on a scavenger hunt, only to find pink slips. Like that should be the thing. Instead of like sending out a press release on WWE.com, it should be WWE Ultimate Challenge, and then the end of it should be the punchline, which is, oh, by the way, we're totally going to fire them. They're looking for their own pink slips. Extreme WWE Collector. All right, this one's not terrible. Starring superfan Michael Patterson. Basically a WWE version of Travel Channel's Toy Hunter, except Patterson is chasing WWE toys and memorabilia. I don't hate that idea, actually.
No, that's not bad.
There's so many of these while I'm reading it. I'm like, WWE, you can call me. I work at a thrift store. Do you realize how many random ass obscure wrestling stuff comes into that store? I do want to segue here. Speaking of collectibles, Michael Sears apparently is the first and probably the only person who listens to the show that now owns all of our t-shirts. I will say, sir, that if the show ever does anything, you are the only owner of those t-shirts. You're an owner before the actual hosts own t-shirts. If I see any of those t-shirts on eBay, I will fucking I will fucking terrible things to you. Because they will be collectible. They're going to be collectibles even if the show goes nowhere.
Yeah, they're rare.
Jason, we've done it. We've accomplished our mission with this. We're rare. We're unwanted and unappreciated. In 10 years from now, people will be saying, damn, I got to track down some Mark's Comedy. No, they don't make those anymore.
And then it'll be like the NES, whatchamacallit, World Championship, like gold edition that are always popping up on eBay, where it's like, this is going for $5,000. They only made 4 of them.
Oh, it's absurd, dude. I was actually just telling my coworker at the thrift store about a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, the Dream Child t-shirt. It's a gray shirt, Freddy Krueger on it, and there's like the demonic carriages in the background. It was someone in Massachusetts. I bid like $10. Like it's not going to get higher than that. By the time the auction ended, it was like $2,000 or $4,000, something like that. Yeah, a t-shirt. I remember this girl Aaron was like, who the fuck would do that? I'm like, dude, do you realize if I was making that kind of money, like if I literally was wiping my ass $100 bills, I'd be walking around with like $4,000 t-shirts from like the 80s like it was nothing.
I'm constantly buying like random tees and shit like that. Like I don't know if you saw like about the Wayne's World hat.
He buys a Wayne's World hat, but he doesn't buy our t-shirt. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Smith of Mark's on Commentary. I'm applauding you, sir.
It was just before we fucking got the tees official, so.
Yeah, where did you get that hat, sir?
eBay.
You got off eBay? I'm actually watching Wayne. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is probably the most sober or attentive you'll hear me to one of these shows, but I do have Wayne's World 2 playing in the background. I know. I was thinking about that because meanwhile, like I'm about to record Mark's Commentary. And I'm watching in Wayne's World, obviously, when they signed the deal to become like the big corporate show, the sign lowers down, and Wayne looks at Garth. Oh, party on, Garth. I guess that's essentially what would happen if this show ever got big. Hi, I'm Jason Smith. This is Mark's on Commentary. I guess.
When they have the fucking blue screen that pops down behind them, they're like, "We're in Hawaii."
I still think it's the dumbest thing. It's one of those things. It's so dumb that you have to laugh just because of how awkward it is. Now we're in. Oh, what was it? Nebraska?
Was it Delaware?
Delaware, yeah. We're in Delaware.
Yeah, Delaware.
Meanwhile, we're Mark's on Commentary talking about Wayne's World because it's Jason's stupid fucking hat.
I also have the Back to the Future hat too. So
I won't lie. I almost did buy that. See, we could do shows. Why don't we just take those shows and those should be our YouTube series? Mark's on Commentary, Extreme Collectibles. What do you have, Eddie? I have a box of Nightmare on Elm Street trading cards that I have yet to open because I don't want them to lose their value. They were manufactured by Impel Trading Card Company in 1991 as a promotional for Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. Yeah, I own those. My fiance sleeps with a guy who has a unopened Nightmare on Elm Street NES-themed action figure.
I thought that like sentence ends there where you're like, my girlfriend sleeps with a guy. I was like, Eddie, I'm sorry. Who is she sleeping with?
I should have ended it there. Yeah, my fiance's totally sleeping with this guy.
Anyways.
He kind of looks like the lead singer, Chris Warren of the DX band. So I think Mike went for that one. I mean, I love Mike Wendt, and I've never met the man. We're friends on Facebook. He worked at a I'll say rival quote unquote radio company across the street. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there working for my company, and like everyone in my radio station had this pride against the people that worked over there. Like, wow, this guy watches awesome horror movies. Like, I'm gonna like everything he posts.
They're a part of the Mike and Billy show, I believe. You can find them on Twitter. We have fun conversations back and forth, so go follow them.
Correction, Jason has fun conversations with them back and forth.
We do, sir.
Yes, we Marks on Commentary.
The collective consciousness of Marks on Commentary on Twitter.
Marks on Commentary has offended or upset you. It's Jason. Because, Jason picks fights with people on Twitter. At MO Commentary, 978-276-941. If you want to leave an angry voicemail for the Mark who offended you on Twitter.
How do you not know what fucking swag means?
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, punk means prison bitch. So CM Punk means CM prison bitch.
But that's more, I don't know.
Chicago made prison bitch. Damn, that's the name of our show tonight. See, there's a nice thing about not being totally fucking drunk while I'm doing the show. Genius. The genius finally comes out in me.
Punk means prison bitch?
Mm-hmm.
That's not an acronym, though.
It's not an acronym. It just means prison bitch. If you were some punk, you were their bitch.
Okay, like geek means you bite the head off of chickens and shit.
Does it?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I knew dork was a whale's penis, I think.
No. In the circus, the guy who used to bite the heads off the chicken was the geek.
That's fucked up. Yep. See, you can learn something by listening to our show. And it has nothing to do with wrestling.
That completely changes high school for Eddie.
It really did, though.
Like, you're a fucking geek. You're like, I do bite. You're like, yeah, so what?
I bite heads off chickens. What of it? Well, do we have any tweets this week? Or completely...
Good question. I put it out there before we started. Let me go over and check. By the way, if you're not watching, check out the Marks on Mania series.
No, we do plan on recording more of those. So, I mean, they were all recorded in one night.
Yep.
Not in one night.
They're recorded each night. What Eddie means to say.
Night. Every night of the week, I'm wearing the same T-shirt.
Full on edumacation.
Now, I really do wish I had something to give away. Otherwise, I would ask our listeners, do you know the significance of a T-shirt I wore during one of those Mark on Mania filmings?
Quiet night. Nobody's on Twitter. They're all watching Impact or something.
They're all watching Wayne's World. I lied to you. I actually have a great number of our listeners sitting in my living room watching Wayne's World 2 with me on Fuse. I think we should get some sort of, I don't know, plug or something every time we talk about something that is in the show, like Mike and Billy. I think they should do something for us. I think Fuse should do something for us. I feel like Mike Myers should give us some of those Wayne's World residuals.
I'll put it out there. I'm sure Mike and Billy will appreciate that.
I think that WWE should give me something for helping with the thought process of their network. Okay, I'm going to interrupt really quick before we wrap up the show. Now, I saw this commercial one time tonight, and it's a commercial. All right, so this young girl goes up to the older guy, and she's, giving him, encouragement, like, oh, you're going on a date, Dad, you're going on a date. So either he divorced his wife or his wife's dead. So he's an older guy, and he's leaving the house, and he's going on a date. The son chases him out the door, and he's like, oh, have fun on your date. And you're like, oh, obviously the mom's dead, because he looks at the son, he's like, oh, it's not a date. No, it's the third time seeing her, it's a date. He slips something in his father's pocket. It's a Trojan commercial. It really bothers me. Like, I know my parents have sex. The worst story. All right, the worst story.
Here it comes.
Worst story. When my dad was going through radiation, my sister bumped into my parents at Walmart, and they were buying condoms. And my mom's thing was, well, Jennifer, he is going through radiation. Literally ruined my life. 978-276-9418 at MO Commentary.
What's the inflection like? Hey, he needs, I need to give him this, or
it went
just
back
precautionary?
Oh God, what was?
Not to get dark or anything.
I forget what the movie was. It was a Kevin Smith movie, Basically, Superman, I think it was Mallrats, actually, where Superman couldn't fuck Lois Lane because...
Oh, the kryptonite condom.
Yeah, the kryptonite. Yes.
That was Mallrats, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I kept thinking when she told me that story. I'm glad my mom doesn't listen to the show. 978-276-9418. ProWrestlingTees.com/MarksCommentary. Marks Commentary on Twitter @MOCommentary. Marks Commentary on Facebook. Like us. MarksCommentary.com.
Marks on Mania, episode 14 will be up tomorrow if you're listening to this. So.
Oh man, they really do have a website for everything. BlackPeopleMeet.com. This is the problem with having a TV screen. This is why we have never done the show live in a bar, because I will literally sit and watch the TV while just talking to you like, wow, that's a thing?
Faces of Death?
Holy shit! All right, well, for Marks and Commentary, I'm Betty Brophy.
I'm Jason Smith.
BM Prison Bitch.
Never hangs around.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Hey, wrestling fans and freaks alike. I am the Information Highway's last living outlaw. My name is the Masked Tweeter. I hail from parts unknown. I am here today to deliver to you breaking news that's going to put you in a headlock. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Stop the presses. Get the president on the horn. This is a big one, folks. I am joining forces with Andy's Army.
Andy's Army.
To get Andy Kaufman the 2014 WWE Hall of Fame Induction Award. Think about it. You, me, the rest of Andy's Army. Together we can collaborate and make this happen, folks. I don't have to tell you, how cool would it be to play a small part in getting the legendary comedian Andy Kaufman inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2014. Wherever you visit online, I want you to hashtag AK4WWEHOF 2014. Let me say it again. Hashtag AK4WWEHOF 2014. Wherever you go, Facebook, Twitter, I want you to hashtag it. I want you to tell your friends. I want you to tell your family. I want you to stop people on the street, people you don't even know. And I want you to say, hey, let's put Andy Kaufman in the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2014. I know you can do it. Remember, hashtag AK4WWEHOF 2014. And don't forget to visit me on Twitter @MaskTweeterX.